Welcome to Something Nice with Dinano. Thank you for joining me and my guest, Penuel. Man, it's like every time I'm having a live, there's always technical difficulties, but I want to thank Penuel for being patient. Thank you to you, if you're watching, for being patient. We were supposed to start at 2000 hours CAT, but now it is 2030 CAT. Let's welcome our guest, a man you should know, Penuel, the God panelist. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, brother. How are you this evening?
I'm all right, man. Thanks for your time. Look, I
No, not a problem.
understand. I understand, and I think you also understand the frustrations of trying to do a live broadcast these days. There's so many technical things that we have to deal with, and working by myself, I have to be everything: production
Sure.
assistant, host, and all that. But thank you for your
Chomoson.
time, Penyo. And I was about to ask you, what language do you speak at home?
I speak English at home. I was raised a Zulu boy. I speak isiZulu, but generally we're very Model C. We're very modern. We speak English mostly at home. We've been completely colonized.
Okay. And
Yeah.
your name, Penuel, just introduce yourself for someone who does not know who Penuel. By the way, let me let the person watching know that he wanted me to introduce him or to label him as God Penuel. And me
Sure.
having a Christian background, I was a bit uncomfortable with that. But I thought I wasn't going to raise that with him because it was so difficult to get him to agree to do this interview. So I thought, okay, let me not piss off God. Let me write him the way I would write him, right? But please
Sure.
introduce yourself. Penuel Mlocho, I believe, but now God
Sure.
of panelists. Where does that come from? Where do you come from? Who are you?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Newcastle, KwaZulu, Natal. I then went to do my undergrad, Bachelor of Commerce, at Rhodes University in accounting and economics. Did my honors in accounting at the University of Johannesburg. Worked for one of my mentors, and then moved to work for two of the biggest banks in the country before I decided to become an entrepreneur. I've been in a couple of industries: fast food, logistics, public transport. I've invested in small businesses like fashion, food, and then I've done a lot of speaking and a lot of meeting some of the biggest names in business in this country, and luckily some of the big names in politics as well. Um, like a lot of supposedly good Black people, I had a very big desire to uplift the Black nation, and I looked at all the various ways to do that. One of them being the writing of books to enlighten the mind, trying to see if I could get on television and influence people through theater. I've made some music, um, and I've started a Buy Black movement as well to try and push Black businesses. And we have a charity foundation, the Mamsi Foundation, which gives back to underprivileged communities. And looking at the situation of Black people mostly, I realized that the biggest issue we have is a software issue. From birth, most of us are a blank canvas. And you realize that we have all these apps, so to speak, shoved into our brains, of which unfortunately religion is one of them. So I decided, you know what, I think if I can go beyond religion, go beyond schooling, go beyond language, and try and get into the minds of Black people initially, and now I've opened up to more than just Black people, and see if I can find a way to rewire their minds so that we can live a better life. But I'm still a serial entrepreneur. I'm social commentator. I love speaking about what I see and hear happening in society. And I'd like to think I'm a philosopher. I suffer from various mental illnesses. One of them is believing that I'm God. But I think I'm a good person and I have good intentions. So that's me in a nutshell.
I don't want to dwell much on this thing, but this is very interesting, man. You've got a great background, I would say. But I want to find out how this mission of yours to try to rewire the thinking of Black people. How is it going, and why is it so important for you to pursue?
Like I said, most of us are born with a blank canvas in our minds. We are told what race we are. You're normally born into a certain religious faith. We are told what tribe we belong to. Languages are installed into our brains either at home. I was taught isiZulu at home, and then at school I was taught English and Afrikaans. So you have these language input options that are put into your brain. And then from there, you have your dreams that are implanted into your brain, where you're told you must get matric, you must get a degree, you must go and get a good job, you must get a nice house, you must get a nice car, you must get married and have children. Somewhere along the way in that journey, I learned about Black history. I learned about the slave trade. I learned about Marcus Garvey, Steve Biko, Chris Hani, Robert Sobukwe, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Thomas Sankara, and a whole host of other people. And obviously, our history in South Africa following the African National Congress and apartheid and the struggle. And I felt within myself, after having that information implanted in myself, that I think I want to do something to liberate Black people. I think I can do better, or I can carry on from where some of the guys I've mentioned had left off. So I started off on this journey, and on the journey, I realized that some of the things that have been implanted in the minds of Blacks came from colonization, being religion, being Western education, being the Roman Dutch laws that we have today, being the concept of money and the rand and the American dollar, global trade, etc., etc. We can go very, very deep down the rabbit hole, you know. So I wanted to fight, and I wanted to do my best, and I tried to see where can we effect change. Should I become a politician? I realized politics is a pile of nonsense. Should I become a businessman, which was one of the things I wanted to do? Let me become as rich as possible so that I can give as many scholarships as possible, invest in as many businesses as possible, create as many jobs as possible. And then I realized, when you study some of the biggest names in history, Adolf Hitler, Napoleon, Mao Zedong in China, Genghis Khan, some of the older empires, Julius Caesar, you realize that this thing is really, really deep. And the controlling of human beings and the wars that have been fought and the movement of resources and colonization is so much deeper than just a Black condition. And if you look at where the world is going today, we have got robots that are going to be taking over jobs. We've got people that don't know what they're living for, that are taking drugs to escape, that are falling depressed, that are committing suicide. And I think, like I said, the stuff that has been implanted into our brains needs, we need a new operating system. And I am looking to build a new operating system for as many people as possible. Not so much so they can become rich, not so much so they can become hardworking, but more so that people can be happy and so that people can have inner peace and be healthy. So my insanity is driven by that, by and large. It started off as a fight to liberate Black people and the Black mind, but like I said, it is now expanded to almost anyone who feels under pressure and oppressed by the various systems that we find ourselves in.
Man, as you are talking, I'm getting chills. I think now I suffer from some of these mental illnesses, Zako. And I've been saying to
Sure.
some people I know that we have a tendency of thinking, whenever we hear someone who seems to resonate or who seems to share the same sentiments as us, and we tend to think of those people as being smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think you, to a certain extent, you think, wow, he thinks like me. He must be a very smart guy. But I'm getting a lot of that from you. And I'm picking up that you sound like a person who reads a lot.
Sure.
I've come to realize that reading opens your mind up to a whole lot of things,
Sure.
As I was talking about myself earlier on, I grew up a Christian person, dogmatic in every way you can think
Sure.
of. I mean, I was saying to you offline when you said I should label you as God, Penuel, I thought, no, man, this guy. But I didn't raise that with you because I'm still stuck in that old way of thinking, right? Even
Mm.
though there are things like we are gods in the Bible, but I don't
Yes.
want to be God.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people that you spoke about, that you referred to. And one person that stands out for me personally is Thomas Sankara.
Sure.
You know, I feel that in Africa we have a leadership deficit, or I don't know what it is, man, but we seem to lack people who are people centered in positions
Sure.
of leadership, to such an extent
Sure.
that in the past couple of weeks, I've thought to myself, do we really need to be led? And as a person who labels yourself as a leader, do we need to be led? Do we have to have leaders? Aren't we capable enough to make the right decisions in terms of where we need to go as a people? Maybe we shouldn't even think in the general way of thinking, but start with us as individuals. Are we not smart enough? Are we not woke enough to realize
Mm.
and see what's happening to such an extent that
Sure.
we change how we do things and we try to do best for emancipating our people as a whole?
Sure. It's a very good question, and I want to start off by saying that leadership in itself is a mental illness, because leadership is not nice, um, especially if you're leading a people that come from an adverse background. It means you are going to be ridiculed, attacked, potentially killed, and even ridiculed by your own people. So, leadership, true leadership, not appointed leadership like being appointed a manager in a business. True leadership, where you feel a sense of wanting to take people from a worse off place to a better off place, is a disease of sorts. You spoke earlier about the fact that it sounds like I read a lot, and I'm constantly downloading information. I used to read a lot of books from birth, primary school, high school, university, just went insane. I read everything. I read the entire Bible. I read a very thick biography of Che Guevara. I read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. I've read a lot of literature, business, politics, economics, religion, etc. Today we have technology, so I read a lot of articles. I watch a lot of YouTube. I listen to a lot of engagements, and my brain is constantly downloading information. A lot of us are similar. You know, we're very curious about the way the world works, and we're the kind of guys who actually listen to parliamentary speeches that are boring, you know, because we have a desire to know. When you have that type of mindset that we have, it means you are more knowledgeable than the next person, which means the next person, even if you are the same age, is almost childlike. They haven't read the books, they haven't watched the art, they haven't watched the documentaries, they haven't engaged some of the people that run the world. So they are like a child. And I think it then becomes your responsibility as someone who is knowledgeable to then take that person who is childlike and take them forward. You know, when you have children, of which you and I are fathers, it is almost our responsibility to guide our children, because they do not know what we know. In the same breath, there are a lot of adults who don't know what we know. Just this past week, because it's election season, I made a video on YouTube, speaking about what politics is and being active in politics. I even posted a couple of links on my Twitter feed and on my WhatsApp status, how you can find out who your ward councillor is, the person responsible for your area. There are doctors, chartered accountants, engineers, lawyers, millionaires who don't know just that basic information. Who's your ward councillor? Who's your mayor? Do you know the budget in your area? Do you know the right channels? Do you know the legal processes out there? So it becomes fundamentally important, at least if you have a good heart, to be the person who then becomes a father figure to society. Because to me, leadership is literally being a father to others. The story of Thomas Sankara is very sad, because he won. Unlike a lot of other black leaders, he actually won. He took over his nation. He planted trees. He got the nation to play sports. He empowered women. And he built a utopia. Unfortunately, he was then killed, which almost means even after you've won in driving a black agenda, you will still lose. And I think
Killed by his
when
best
Nelson
friend,
Mandela,
his closest confidant. Black guy like him.
when you've read enough books and watched enough conspiracy theories, you understand that when they say Thomas was killed by his best friend and that Ushaka was killed by his brothers, it's no different to reading history books in the future saying Cyril Ramaphosa jailed Jacob Zuma, making it a black on black, making it a family on family. Cain killed Abel. But you read enough books and you realize there are agendas out there. Yes, it could have been someone close to him to make it seem like it's jealousy, family. What's happening in the Zulu kingdom now with Prince Magade wanting to be the right king instead of Umiso Zulu. Or it could be people with agendas behind saying, no, he was actually killed by his friend, or he was actually killed by his woman, or whatever. So I take all of that stuff with a pinch of salt, to be honest. But we have a leadership vacuum on the continent. Number one, because leadership is an illness. It has to keep you up awake at night, like your dream woman, like your dream job. You must be addicted to pain and struggle and ridicule. As a Christian, I'd like to think one of your biggest role models will be or would be Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was ridiculed from being a youngster. He was out there arguing with heads of temples. He was befriending unsavory characters, prostitutes, pimps. He was going around saying things that people did not want to hear. And like some of the black leaders I spoke about, he eventually got killed for being a revolutionary because he had this disease of saying, I'm God's son. Believe in me. Love your neighbor. Do good unto others. And the people that were in power in the time were like, this is rubbish. And
Also
just like you said with Thomas Sankara,
confidant, by the way, also sold by a close confidant.
I was literally about to say that when you read the story now, it tells you the exact Thomas Sankara story of he was sold by one of his disciples being Judas. So leadership is a disease. Number two, when you look at the different forces that are fighting, and let's use, for example, black versus white. White supremacist leaders never fight average blacks. They understand that the average black has got no power. The average black or even black leaders constantly want to fight mediocre whites. White leaders always go for the head of the snake. They will kill your best leaders, or they will discredit them, or they will find a way to silence them. Black leaders will never go for the head, ever. They will go for the white puppet. They will go for the black puppet. We know some of the people who are the billionaires, some of the people who influence at the highest levels in the world. But no one will ever think of taking those people out. That's where the game is played. So even when we have good black leaders, they get taken out. We have a lot of intelligent young black people. Unfortunately, they are scared. And then we have a lot of very stupid, very corrupt, very greedy young black people who are very brave. And those are the guys that end up becoming the leaders. And then we get stuck with the type of crap leadership we have, where a guy is promised a nice house in Sandhurst. He's given 200,000 a month, and he's ready to sell his people down the river. So that's the situation we have with the leadership of black people specifically.
What do we do, man? I've come to a point where I'm starting to think that imali nguThixo.
Yes.
Money is God.
Money is more
God
powerful
is
than
money.
God. Money is more powerful than God.
I've come to think like that now, ever since I've discovered the whole blockchain, cryptocurrency thing. Because I've come to realize that money runs everything. And without money, and you keep talking about these powerful people. A friend of mine once said, one day we must talk about the powerlessness of power, which made me think that this guy is seemingly in a very powerful position. Black guy, young black guy.
Yes.
But having been that young black person in the echelons of power in some organization in Africa, he's come to realize that, man, we are just here but we don't take the decisions.
Yeah.
Do we still have those strong black leaders who can really effect change that can be felt gumuntu ohlala e-Deep Sword, gumuntu ohlala e-Zandspruit, or we are just Twitterati, tweeting and holding these Twitter spaces and really not doing anything meaningful? Because I think one of the disadvantages of social media platforms that, fair enough, it gets us to engage. I'm also reaching a point where in a pen where I feel like talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking gets exhausting. And
Sure.
our situation is a situation of bad, is a bad situation. Our plight is bad, and we need urgency in dealing with our situations.
Sure.
Do we have these leaders to show us? I'm seeing leadership in you, man. Maybe you're the type of person that needs to stand up and get moving. Because your commentary on that guy, that billionaire guy, Rob Hersov, whatever his name is, did the
Yeah.
rounds and people were quite excited. But it's social media. We get excited on Friday, Monday, something else comes up, Pirates or Sundowns wins a game, and
Yeah.
that becomes a talking point. Boiti lays a charge against someone, that becomes a talking point. But we never
Yes.
seem to be steadfast and focused on what needs to be done. So I titled this talk today, What Needs to Be Done
Sure.
to Take Us Forward. Let's take this question from Umkolisi. What real and sustainably, okay, real and sustainable solution can we start with? Okay, so what real and sustainable solutions can we come up with, or can we devise to get us going in taking our people forward?
Sure. So I'll start with your question if we have leaders. And by we, you're speaking about black people.
Yes.
There's a lot of black leaders, but they have a lot of agendas, of which almost everyone's agenda, like you said, is linked to money. Money is more powerful than God. Even atheists, people that don't believe in religion, even people who are agnostic and don't believe in or believe in higher powers but not religion, even those people still respect money and believe in the power of money. Because of my in-depth research into the way the world works and the systems, I am one of the few potential leaders, and there's a lot, mind you. It's just because they're not aligned to the money agenda, their voices are never heard. I'm one of the few leaders who is actually trying to find solutions outside of money for black people, but more than black people, just for poor people in South Africa and Africa and around the world. So I'm championing for unplugging from money for them, looking to go back into bartering, living a minimalistic life, which means getting rid of your material possessions, etc., etc. It's very difficult getting people to do that. And I want to go back to what you were saying about that we speak. And for a long time, I felt guilty. I think I speak too much and do too little. But the power is actually in the speaking, and the power is in the writing.
Okay.
The most powerful pieces of the most powerful forces on this earth are on pieces of paper. We speak in the Bible, we speak in the Quran, we speak in the Torah, we speak in Buddhist writings. Those were written on pieces of paper and then ignited. The money we speak of today is now on a screen, but it started off as pieces of paper. The difference now between those pieces of paper and what we're doing is there are people that every single day invest time teaching Muslim children about the Quran, teaching people about Jesus's teachings in the Bible, teaching about Buddha. We speak about what we speak about one day, like you said about my video, it trends for a week, and then people are back to their normal viewing. I realize the power of propaganda and the power of paid propaganda and the power of being on the biggest platforms in the world. And that means every single day saying the exact same thing over and over again. Adolf Hitler, he was speaking about a lie, but he said, make it big, make it simple, but keep saying it until they believe it. So we do not have this power of repeating it. You look at someone like Julius Malema. We know the EFF speaks about land and nationalization, but you realize that a lot of periods pass where he doesn't speak about it as much. He gets quiet at times. On those days when he's quiet, pastors are preaching, you know, churches are open, mosques are preaching, people are busy watching the same adverts on TV over and over again, watching the same TV shows, watching the same news agendas. Every single day we're getting SMSs, get a COVID vaccine. We're watching influencers telling us about COVID. Everywhere it's COVID. If you ask anyone today what's been happening in the last 2 years, they'll tell you COVID because they understand the power of repeating something over
Repetition.
and over again. So whatever agenda I'm pushing, for example, in terms of liberating at least the poorest, I think rich people and middle class people are generally okay, to be fully honest. But the poor people need to be told a certain message over and over. And the best places to do that is in school, it's in church, it's on TV, it's on radio, it's on social media. And then recruit, like your mate, Jesus Christ, recruit 12 disciples who are going to be spreading this gospel every day, formalize it in a book, take that book, turn it into songs, turn those songs into TV shows, into movies, into R&B, into hip hop, into theater productions, and ignite this thing and turn it into reality. And have people that worship the idea of growing their own food, worship the idea of having their own medication, worship the idea of living with very, very little, like the Shaolin monks, like some of the gurus in India, and say that this is my life, this is how I want to live, and it's fine and it's normal. I don't need a Ferrari. I don't need a big house. Because everywhere you look, everyone on Instagram wants to be a slay queen, wants to be light skinned, wants to have a big bum, wants to be sipping Moe at some club or want to be at Waterfall City having meals because it's being shoved down their brains as if it's your dream. It's not.
Hey, it's
You're a
easy for you
blank
to
canvas.
judge those people, man, because when you're a yellow bone by nature.
Stop it. Stop it. So, one of the controversial ideas I have currently, um, there have been a lot of initiatives trying to save the rhino. There have been a lot of initiatives to try and save the panda in Asia and a whole lot of other endangered species around the world. And game reserves are set up with people that patrol, and these animals are left to their own devices in their natural habitat. I think a lot of the poor people, and especially in places like Africa, Asia, South America, not really sure about North America and Europe, there's a lot of cultures and people that need to be left alone. And we need to create large pieces of land that we fence off and that we protect aggressively, like the rhino, with guns if need be, and let the people inside there live and thrive without intervention, without technology, without Wi-Fi, without the schooling system, without religion, etc., etc. It's controversial. It almost makes poor people look like animals, but I think it might be the best way to save people because the capitalist system is not designed for everyone. It's
But I
designed
think
for a percentage.
it's happening already. I think there's a community outside Sri Lanka, an island somewhere in Sri Lanka close to India, that is
Sure,
protected. And I think there are some people protected in the Amazon forest. Do you think we have such communities that you think would need protection here? I think I've seen a community in Tanzania who still living a so-called primitive life where they eat baboons and they hunt them. Some American guy did a couple of videos with them on YouTube.
sure.
Do you think we have such communities? Why do you think? Don't you think these people need to decide for themselves if they want civilization? Why do you think it is important for God Penuel to decide for them?
Sure. So I'm very inspired to hear what you're saying. If you go to the union buildings in Pretoria, for example, I know the Bushmen are there protesting because they want their land, and they're one of the communities that I think wants to be uh, kept as primitive as possible. Because even if you go
Are
to
they
the
still
union
there?
buildings,
Are they
you'll
still
find
there?
them there. They naked. They've been there for years. They're still there.
I know.
You know.
Wow. Okay.
Um, the concept of choice, free will, so to speak. Someone decides that they want to be the god of others. The same way white people came here with their colonization and their supposed civilization and thought, you guys are barbaric. We will introduce you to education. and English and Western laws and money and will dress you
Christian
up
God.
nicely. And we were sold an idea that this is better, and we've bought into it. And I'm realizing that for a lot of people it didn't work and it wasn't great. And I used to have a desire to fetch poor kids from the villages and bring them to Joburg for a weekend. Take them to Nelson Mandela Square for lunch at a nice restaurant. Take them to Gold Reef City. Take them to the Johannesburg Zoo. Let them sleep in a nice hotel and completely change their minds, blow their minds, with the hope that it will motivate them when they go back home to the village. I realize that the danger of that for a lot of kids is that as soon as they get back home, it will be the first time that they realize that they are actually very poor. And from that point on, they will end up looking at their parents asking, why are we poor? I don't want to be here anymore. I hate this place. And one child might be motivated to want to get out of there. But like I said, the capitalist system is not designed for everyone. Some of the other kids that realize they will never get there end up depressed and maybe suicidal. Some of them are like, I'm going to get that no matter what, and they're going to crime. If you had never disturbed those kids, they would have never known that they were poor. They would have never known that there's a world out there that looks better than theirs. And they would have been content with what they have. There's a huge danger in overexposure. It drives you insane. It makes you feel inadequate. You think you're rich until you visit Camps Bay, until you go to New York, until you meet people who bet on a soccer game. They're like, I'll give you my car. And they mean it. And you realize, am I even alive? To what you were saying about your mate who's a big deal on the continent, but he realized we're actually playing games. It's because he was overexposed. And now he feels inadequate, whereas he felt like a boss. So as much as we want to decide for other people, because like I said before, leadership is about being a father to those who have the minds of a child. Sometimes if you're a good father, you realize not all your children have the same capabilities. Not all of your children are going to be actuarial scientists. And I think it's up to a responsible father to realize, I think that child must work with their hands. I think that child must live close to me because they need better attention. I think that child must actually not live with the family. They must go be overseas because they have a lot of potential. You can't force all your children to do what the greatest child does because they will be depressed and you will destroy them. So I think it's fundamentally important that a lot of people are unplugged from the system. I mean, you're 37 years old, you're begging other men for a job every morning. You are begging government for a grant. You are miserable. You drink your sorrows away every weekend. You are taking Nyaupe to numb the pain. You're obviously not winning in the system. Something
You are hitting
different
hard,
is
man.
needed.
Calm down.
Yeah,
You are hitting hard, and you are hitting where it hurts the most. Because this has
sure.
been my frustration. Let's get to the questions here. Sorry for stopping you there, but you're hitting very
No
close to
problem.
home. But it's the truth that needs to be said, though, Penuel, and I appreciate that. Here's
Yeah.
a question from Pili Teacher. How would you say that name? Can you say Phil Teacher?
Full teacher,
But
yeah.
yeah.
It looks like
So
full
she's got
teacher.
a question. How do I become part of the solution and engage with Penuel? So this is what we're talking about. There are people who are interested to
Yeah,
get the ball rolling, right? To
yeah,
bring solutions, to help Abantu, and to inspire and to change lives. And I appreciate this from you. When I watched that video, I've been following you for a while, by the way. And I think I
yeah,
commented on one of your Twitter posts the other day. You were talking something about education, which is something you also touched on earlier
yeah,
here. And I think I made reference to a guy called Sir Ken Robinson. And he actually also touches on what you've just said now
yeah,
in terms of leadership and being a father and finding what suits certain people and not box people and say, hey, we can all be engineers. Hey, we can all be accountants. But how does
yeah,
one get involved with the things that you're doing? I mean, I know of one initiative that you told me about, which is called Buy Black, which I think
sure.
we need to talk about now. And then from there, we'll talk about solutions and we'll engage people who might have questions. But who feel teacher, how
Yeah.
do I become
So
part of the solution and engage with panel? So you'll have to answer that.
yeah, I'm doing a lot of things of which I want to try and get out and do one thing. Um, We do charity work under the Mamsi Foundation. We run soup kitchens. We donate clothing. There's an informal settlement that has had houses burnt down in the East Rand that I'm hoping to get to this coming week because they need clothing and food. So she can contact me via my social media platforms at Penuelist on Instagram and Twitter, Penuel on YouTube. And then I guess if you just Google Penuel Mlotshwa, you'll find my details. I hate charity work, ironically. I feel like charity work is like feeding pigeons. They keep coming back every day, and all they leave behind is shit. I think we need to find better solutions than just charity. I don't think everyone can have a job. I don't think everyone should look for a job. That's part of why I want to build these alternative communities. Very importantly is for each person to liberate themselves, to accumulate as much knowledge as possible, and then to find, if it's not me, like-minded people. Begin growing their own food. You don't need to have land to grow food. You can plant food in buckets, in ice cream containers inside your house. Grow your own food. Question everything. Question absolutely everything. Remember that fundamentally, we are no different to a chimpanzee. Most of our lived reality today is fiction. It's not real. We don't need to wear clothing. Someone convinced us, just like Adam and Eve in the Bible. Someone came to Africa and convinced us that we're naked. Today, we can't live without clothing. And worse, we can't live without changing our fashion every single season. The laws that were implanted onto us are not really real. Like I said, some of the labels, I believe Zulu, you believe Xhosa. Tomorrow we fight based on these flimsy labels that someone decided to give us. So it's very important that we question everything and we realize that we are animals at the end of the day, and we need to find some kind of inner peace and a way of living that makes you happy. Can watch a lot of my videos, listen to what I say. I can refer you to a whole lot of other content to listen to. Because if you can almost wipe the slate clean in your brain is a cell phone. I'm asking you to, very difficult process, to try and uninstall as many apps as possible. And then I can direct you to new apps that you can download. That'll make sure that you're no longer fat, that you're no longer coughing all the time, that you no longer think you're ugly, that you don't need to be chasing brands. Brands means you're wearing someone else's name on your body. It means you're glorifying another person. The same God and Jesus said, don't worship idols. But here you are wearing Gucci and Prada and Dolce and Gabbana, which means you're worshiping idols. You're taking money that's meant to uplift your grandparents, and you're going to buy the latest Louis Vuitton because you want to worship this thing and you want to be worshipped as an ambassador of some brand you don't even know. You know what I mean? So it's very much about rewiring the brain and rebuilding our brains so that we can win, so that we feel like, you know what, this is how we should be living, and we're at peace.
Are you a minimalist?
So it's a very difficult process. I'm a minimalist. I still think I can do more. Huh?
What's your most prized position as a minimalist? By the way, I like the minimalist approach. That's where I'm moving. I'm moving away from Joburg in the next 5 years. I'm tired of the rat race, right? Jeez. But thankfully, there are guys like Elon Musk who are connecting us with all Starlink bars. Because even if I move to MacG, I still want to be connected and get to understand what is happening in the world, and still connect with guys like you that are thinkers, that are readers. That challenge your thinking and what you have always known. But what's your most prized possession when as a minimalist? By the way, minimalism is a lifestyle choice that I picked up from a couple of white American young males, right? Yeah. And it's become a movement. There's documentaries about it on Netflix, something worth checking out. And I would like to believe Steve Jobs was a minimalist. Someone was talking about him and visiting him, and he found only a record player and a couple of records in his massive house and just a bed, something like that. What's your most prized possession, or do you have a prized possession as a minimalist?
I wanted to say something before I answered you, yes.
Sorry,
Oh,
man.
this is what I wanted to say. We all have different positions to play in this world. Um, Self-awareness is one of the most difficult things to have as a human being, knowing who you are and what you're meant to do. We can't all be leaders, can't all be presidents and kings and billionaires. Everyone has to play a position. So, in what you were saying about leaving Joburg and the rat race, I hope it's because you've discovered where you're meant to be. Because you may need to be here. Don't run away from where you need to be just because you're chasing what someone else wants, even if it looks simpler, is the first thing I wanted to say. The Minimalist is a very good documentary on Netflix. Ryan and Nicodemus, the guy who filmed the documentary, I forget his name. Is it Mark
Is it
something?
not Matt? Matt is a YouTuber too,
Matt,
right?
Matt, Matt. Yeah, he's got great videos.
Filmographer, what videographer too? Yeah, Matt
Yeah,
something. I think I'll find it.
yeah. So minimalism is very good to watch from that perspective. But again, once you go deeper down the rabbit hole, you realize there's like glamorous minimalism. You know, I just have one watch, but it's worth 200,000. So there's like a
Matt
glamorous
Diavela.
luxury. Matt Diavela, yeah. There's a very expensive minimalism, which I'm not about. I'm very much about going back to where our ancestors come from, who were minimalists, you know, who were organic, who were eco-friendly before it became cool, you know.
Yeah.
I like Mark Zuckerberg, like Steve Jobs, like Albert Einstein. I wear the same clothing every day, or the same type of clothing: black t-shirt, black shorts. When it's cold, I wear a black hoodie and black track pants. I'm trying to get to a point where I can get more and more naked, so my insanity points are going to increase. I I I sleep on the floor. I've got a mattress. I sleep on the floor. I got rid of my beds. My mom and I got rid of our couches. Um, our place keeps getting emptier and emptier, and my brother thinks we're losing our minds. We keep giving away more and more of our clothing. Um, I've learned to live with almost nothing, and it's one of the most beautiful things when I travel, whether locally or abroad, where I need a small bag. You know,
Sounds like you've been reading a lot of. Is it Paul in the Bible? Philippians 4:13. I
was he a
can do
minimalist?
all things. No, he says I've learned to live with I've learned to live without having anything, and I've also
Yeah,
lived with a lot. But I've
yeah,
come to realize that all these things don't mean anything.
yeah. You shouldn't have to become a billionaire or very rich and successful like Jim Carrey, like Elon Musk, even like Steve Jobs. You shouldn't have to get to that point to
For you
reach
to realize
enlightenment.
these things are useless.
Yeah,
Because these guys are actually
yeah,
going to the old way of living, minimalism.
yeah,
Elon
yeah,
is said to be living his big houses. Jim Carrey now has realized this is all, madness.
yeah, yeah. So prized possessions, material possessions are very important. I've gotten rid of a lot. You can buy a toothbrush anywhere you go. You can buy a face cloth anywhere you go. You can buy soap anywhere you go. I can even buy a t-shirt and pants anywhere I go. My most prized possession is my cell phone for now, but I'm happy that I'm storing a lot of things on a cloud, such that if I ever travel anywhere, I want to be able to plug into all my platforms from anywhere where I'm at. I also wanted to mention with minimalism that some people are going beyond material possessions into number one, the mind, which means clearing out as much of your memory as possible, clearing out your phone, getting rid of apps, having a very plain, simple phone. And then even with food, people are cutting down on food. We know vegetarians, we know pescatarians who eat fish, we know vegan people, we know people on a plant-based diet. There are people now called breatharians who basically are looking to eat nothing and eat as
Breatharian.
little as possible just to get by. A breatharian, yes. Very
What
dangerous,
they live on
very
air,
dangerous.
on
They
oxygen.
live on sunlight and energy, bit of water.
Don't get to
Very
that point. I know you're a crazy dude, but don't go that
yeah.
far.
So the funny thing about it, and look, I found a way to try and connect everything in the world to everything else.
Hmm.
Breatharianism, I think, is extreme and unnecessary.
Okay.
But breatharianism is an extension of what you guys call fasting.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
basically. You're right.
So they are just extreme fasting. And the Indian gurus are known for it. For example, um, we don't need as much as capitalism has told us to live. I'm not a proponent for not eating. I love meat, but I'm very much a proponent of outside of my cell phone, which also at some point I think is going to become less and less valuable. Outside of my cell phone, my most prized possession is my mind. And besides my mind, it's my body. The body is the only asset we keep from birth until death. And we treat it like junk. The things we put inside it, we don't rest enough, we don't exercise, we don't
Eat a
groom
lot
it
of meat.
well.
We eat a lot of
We,
meat, which you
we
should try to get away from. I'll tell you
no,
why.
I'm cutting down. I'm cutting down. But we eat a lot of
Indodomzulu.
we eat a lot of unhealthy meats. We eat a lot
Yeah.
of unhealthy foods, and literally we treat our bodies like a dustbin, but we don't realize it. And if we valued our bodies more, because you must remember your body is your first car. It takes you from point A to point B. Your body is your first piece of clothing because it actually keeps you warm or keeps you cool. Your body is your first weapon. If you don't have a stick or a gun, you use your fists or your legs to kick. Your body houses the best computer in the world, which is your brain. So our bodies are the most prized possessions we can ever have, but we don't take good care of them. We don't upgrade them like we do with our cell phones. People are not reading every day. They're not empowering their minds. People are not upgrading their bodies, which are the hardware. You get a new phone, you get a new car, you get a new house, but you're not getting a new body where you're building your body every day. So I think it's very important that that message is also sent out to people who want to live a better life. Those are the things that are valuable, not the name on the t-shirt that you're wearing or on the sneaker that you're wearing or on the car that you're wearing. Busy glorifying other people from overseas whose families you don't know and who would never feed your kids if you died tomorrow.
Powerful stuff, man. And I've realized I've just hit 40 and I've lost a couple of teeth because
Yeah,
I've got a sweet tooth, right?
yeah,
Recently had a procedure to extract one of the teeth. Man, it was a very painful experience. Off work for
yeah,
weeks. Couldn't eat. I'm a skinny guy, right? But
sure.
I couldn't eat properly because that thing hurt a lot. I was on pain meds for about
Yeah,
8-9 days.
yeah,
It was brutal. And one of the things I came out with from that experience is to advise younger people to take care of their teeth. So I think it goes with this thing of taking care of your body. Another
yeah,
experience I've had, good December, we're having a braai. A braai is barbecue for our American and international
sure.
viewers. I had a lot of meat that day, fried meat. And I woke up with, I don't know if it was the beginning of gout, right? Because I don't
Yeah,
even drink. So pains on my wrists and on my ankles. And I just thought about it, man.
yeah,
The stuff we put in is not helping us. It's actually killing us. So I think that's a
yeah,
great point that we are treating our bodies like rubbish bins.
yeah,
And a healthy mind needs a healthy body.
yeah,
So if we don't have healthy bodies, our minds won't be open and clear enough to absorb all the new and important information we are taking in. We've been talking a lot, but I want us to move towards solutions for our
sure.
continent. We face a lot of problems, right? But before we go there, there's something that you said. I don't know if it might be similar to my way of thinking recently. There's so much obsession about identity.
Yeah,
Ndingumxhosa, ndingumZulu, ndingumTswana, and I feel like these are some of the things that were used by colonizers to divide us and to
yeah,
make us weaker, right? And I'm reaching a point now, even with this thing of put South Africans first, I might be shot down now by the put South Africa first brigade. I don't know if you're one of
sure.
them. Are you?
No,
Okay. I've reached a point where I'm saying, let's stop obsessing about identity. Let's stop obsessing about nationalities. Let's stop obsessing about borders. Let's just be interested in being people and finding a common cause, fight for that cause, push for that cause, and accomplish whatever needs to be accomplished. What's your thought on that? Identity politics, identifying as umZulu, identifying as umXhosa, identifying as uDlamini, whatever. By the way, I am a Xhosa speaker, but I'm a person who came down from KwaZulu. I was disappointed when you labeled it KwaZulu Natal in your introduction. I thought you were one of those very woke black men who would refer to it as KwaZulu, full stop.
But I
right?
emphasize the KwaZulu, Mos.
But you still
I
said
tried.
Actually, yesterday, I might get carried away here. Yesterday, I was listening to one of the spaces from a guy that I know from back home. And a guy came in, I think the guy's name was Pe, and he was talking about how we've allowed colonialism to lord over us and rule us. He even went as far as saying we obsess about keeping these names. For example, he referred to KwaMashu, saying KwaMashu is named after a guy called Marshall. So KwaMarshall, and then people shortened it to KwaMashu, even took it to Durban, named after some urban guy, right?
Yeah.
But now there's the issue of identities, and I think it could become a problem in South Africa. We see it popping up every now and then with the so-called unrest that was happening in KwaZulu, Gauteng, and there were people from other provinces saying, "Hey, Lama Zulu," you know. So, what's your take on that, and what advice can you give our people to stop obsessing about these identities, these borders, these nationalities, this patriotism?
It's a very difficult question. One of my principles in my book, Penuelism Principles, which houses my thoughts as God, is animalism, which says we need to transcend race, gender, nationality, religion, etc., and look to the animal inside a person, because anyone can be a good or a bad person, regardless of whatever labels that they have. I had a lot of issues with the feminism movement. I still kind of do. I was one of the people that was a bit uncomfortable with Black Lives Matter. I'm currently undergoing a process where I'm becoming non-racialist, which I always thought was stupid. Nelson Mandela, non-racialist. I was like, what the fuck? I'm at a point as well where I'm trying to become non-sexist, and look beyond your private parts, is basically how I explain it. The fact that you have a penis doesn't mean I must treat you a certain way. And these ideas that have been around since I was very young, but I always thought they were stupid. There's a place for biology, of course. There's a place for hormones, definitely. There's a place for identity, but I feel like identity should always be practical more than airy-fairy labels. Because we live in a world today where we are connected via technology. A lot of us are finding like-minded people in America, in Germany, in Japan, in South Korea. People that understand you more than your own family, more than your own blood, who say that you're crazy, you've got stupid ideas. What the hell is minimalism? What? And you're like, I've found people that actually agree with my way of being. And not only have I found those people, but when I look into the history books of our own family, we lived like that. So I'm actually not that crazy. So we need to segment human beings according to their interests. The problem with colonization and capitalism is that it wants to enforce one way of being for everyone. When I watched a very good Netflix docu-series, How to Become a Tyrant, one of the things that came out to me was a lot of these leaders that are called dictators only cared about looking out for their people. Muammar Gaddafi, Kim Jong-un, Idi Amin, they were saying, I'm a father of a nation. These are my children. I want to take care of them. But the West, America, Europe, they never want people to take care of their families the way they want. They want to come and enforce. They want to come and infiltrate and colonize instead of leaving people alone. If you want your children to not go to school and you want them to work for the family and look after cattle and learn how to fix cars, who am I to come and tell you that you're a bad father, do things the way I want? And I think that's the problem with the identity that we have today. Someone came and created borders. You are South Africans. And today we bought into those borders. And when our fellow neighbors, who are not even neighbors, Zimbabweans, come into the nation looking for a better, Zimbabweans that are probably closer, or not even Zimbabweans, let's say people from Mbabane or Maseru,
Nasir.
it's closer for
Same
them to
country.
travel to, it's
Same
closer for
country.
them to travel to Joburg and Durban than a person from Cape Town. But
Same
a person
country.
from Cape Town we see as a local, and a person from Maseru is a foreigner. Which means our minds have been colonized. That's what I mean about uninstalling some of the apps that have been implanted on our brains and putting in new apps that make you question basic things. I come from KwaZulu. I came to a Gauteng, Egoli, for a better life, for money. How am I different from a Zimbabwean who came from Harare purely because they went over a certain gate that was created by someone? If that someone decides to create a gate between KwaZulu and Gauteng, and KwaZulu is not doing well, and all of a sudden now I'm a foreigner again, which means it's a psychological thing. I've been captured. So identity will never end. But I think we need to shift the identity. I'm in the process of changing my surname. For a lot of Black Africans, they feel it's akin to blasphemy. Umlando wakini, imvelaphi, how dare you, your ancestors. And I explained to them that Umlocho was a man, just like me, who one day decided he will lead his family. The family loved what he stood for. He consolidated the family's beliefs, and they then followed him. To this day, you hear uMisuzulu kaZwelithini. We hear Ushaka kasenza ngakhona, usenza ngakhona kajama. That's your father. That's your identity. You don't have to go to Umlotshwa that you don't know. I don't know what he stood for, what he was into. And if you watch shows like Otatako, you may find that one of my great-great-grandmothers actually lied about paternity. So I'm actually not Umlotshwa. Who the hell cares? What matters to me is I know my mother, I know my father, I know my extended family. Let me praise those people and build and grow with them. Let me build and grow with my friends. I am Upenuel wakwaZulu, or Upenuel wase-Joburg, or Upenuel umngani kaDini. That for me is a better label because it is relevant. It is practical. But now if I'm going to hold on to something and fight you, we don't know where Zulu and Xhosa even started from. But someone said, you're inheriting this beef, which is the reason why I'm becoming non-racialist. You're inheriting this beef. So any white person you see, no matter how friendly they are, no matter how much they buy from your business, no matter how much they invest, no matter how much they're willing to feed your kids, he's white, fuck him. Carry that beef that you inherited. We know the history, we know where it comes from. We know there are bad people out there. But trust this black man. Don't mind that he's corrupt. Don't mind that he's looking after his family. He's got the same skin color as you, therefore he's one of yours. That white guy who's trying to help you is a snake. Forget him. And I think that just shows that we're not using our brains the way we should be using them. And I think it's up to leaders like ourselves to go out there and plant these seeds so that people, like I said, can question everything. Don't take things at face value. Just because that guy is Zulu, let me help him and not help my fellow Xhosa brother. Just because you find a strong female leader like Winnie Madikizela Mandela had a vagina. No, she can't be president. We can't have that female. What? She's stronger than probably most men in parliament today. She was a beast of a leader. Strong, brave, unapologetic. But you won't pick her because she has a vagina. No, vagina, because they pee sitting down, it means our country will go to shit. That's not true. So I think we need to, it's not colonization, it's really a socialization of sorts where certain things worked in the past, but I believe we have transcended it today, and we don't necessarily have to hold on to the prescriptions of the past, to where we are today. Let's try and find new models of existing because every era had a way of being, and I think we have the power today to change our surnames, to change the country's name, to change places like Durban into another name, to change places like Kwamashu, to change so many things. A man gave those places names. We are men. We can change those names. Someone
Another
came and said,
question.
this, we can do it. Why not? Why not us? Why can't we do it?
No,
Why
we
can't we
can do
change the
something
rand?
else with the money. Come on, panel. Here's a question from Ayanda Kaba. Ayanda Uti, are there any online Penuel sessions or activities? People need to engage with you, man. Give them that
Yeah.
opportunity. You like talking, people want to talk to you, people need to come up with solutions. And I mean this
Yeah.
in the serious of ways, right?
Yeah.
I think you've got a lot to say. I think you've got a lot of powerful things to say. You should just become a preacher, man. But yeah, how do people engage with you? Are
So
there any online Penuel sessions or activities?
yeah, thanks to Ayanda. So I post a lot of my videos on Instagram now because I keep getting blocked on Facebook because I don't I don't feed into their agenda.
We are two
Oh,
man now. Please let's watch the language, ne? Because I've got a
jeez.
couple of people here who are a bit uptight, who don't
Sensitive.
appreciate that language. Yes.
I'm going to speak about language quickly. So Instagram at Penuelist, Penuelist. Same on Twitter. My YouTube channel is Penuel, my name, Penuel. Post a lot of my
In
videos
fact,
there.
I will put it up on the description after we're
No,
done with
thank you.
this. And then
Yeah,
there's
so I think that's very
perfect.
important.
There's
I want to speak.
sorry.
I want to speak about language before you go to
Just jot it
perfect.
down. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Talk about
So
language.
I used to do a lot of traveling around and speaking to people. I've thought of being a preacher. I've thought of setting up a church. We have the power of technology today. I'm trying to get some work to see if I can get a show on TV. I think that's going to be the easiest way to get through to people. I know my words are not kosher, but I'm gonna try.
I'm gonna keep
And
interrupting
push
you,
from there.
man. Why TV? I
Yeah.
think TV is outdated. These platforms are perfect for people like you.
No, 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 no. It's about reach, and television is reach. The platforms that we have are so fragmented, and the reach is so minimal. Because remember, you and I have got data or Wi-Fi. The bulk of South Africans have no access to data or Wi-Fi. That's why Generations and Uzalo and Iskim Sam have got the highest uh, view counts, audience ratings. Television is still God when it comes to those numbers.
But
We obviously
with your
use social media where we can.
thoughts, with the things you are saying, I don't think you'll
Yes,
make it on mainstream media. That's the issue. You
I
They will
need
want to
to.
control you. They will want to control you. And that's the problem
Yeah,
with mainstream media. But with these
Facebook,
platforms, there's a bit of,
a
flexibility.
bit of freedom. Facebook built itself off breaking rules, bending rules, and then every time they were caught out, they'd break 10 rules, get caught out, and then take 2 steps back.
Yeah.
I'd like to think someone like Kanye West has been using a similar model.
Okay.
So I'm happy to package however they want me to say it, but then try and mastermind. If it means I become a clown on TV and then people jump on my social media and that's where I push consciousness, I'm happy to do that. But just for the reach and maybe mention something in passing that might make people think twice, like, hey, surnames are not really real. Men just like us decided to give their families names. And then you carry on with whatever agenda is being discussed, but you planted a seed. So TV is just the easiest way to reach people and also to make sure I get paid. I want to
Language?
speak on this language thing because
Yeah.
our indigenous languages have been oppressed for a very long time. Where you go to a Model C school and you're speaking in class to your friend, and the teacher says, "Don't speak that language in my class. I can't hear you." I was raised on hip hop, Tupac Shakur, Andre 3000, Erica, Lauren Hill, Talib Kweli, Most Def, Immortal Technique, Kanye West today, Jay-Z, etc. I'm a student of hip hop.
Hey man,
So
I also grew up
I
on hip
come
hop.
from
I hope that's not your excuse for swearing. I've listened to all these guys you're talking about. They are buzzing now. Come on. But carry on.
so I taught my children, I'm a father of 6 children. I taught my children that you need to think about language. And if my son says to me, "Dad, that's so fucking cool," that's a good thing. The fact that he used fucking cool doesn't mean he's cursing. So they need to learn, they must understand the systems they're in. You can't use that at school because they don't allow it. But be able to see that if a person says, "I really fucking like you," versus a person who is not swearing but says something like, "Dini, you're a very ugly person. You're mean. I hope something bad happens to you. No swear words, but negative intent. You need to look behind word and go to intent, but that's obviously for a smarter mind. I just want to mention that briefly in languages, but please carry on with the perfect ngidi.
And people who have been told that they are smart, been told that they are great thinkers like you, have this or a way of speaking down of people who think differently. It's like what you've just said now. Don't you think that's a problem?
Can I tell a short story?
Yeah, carry on. You said you have 2 hours.
Two part.
Carry on.
Two part. The documentary Tupac Resurrection. Tupac Shakur.
I see
Tupac's
that.
mom
Yeah.
was a Black Panther, under Huey Newton and the boys in America. Tupac speaks about how they started by asking nicely as Black people from the white government. Then they started begging. Then they started marching. And then after marching, they became violent. And he says it in a very nice way of how the music changed. We're hungry, we need some food, to the hip hop that became violent of, I'm coming through your house, coming with the gun, get a
F the
gaff, feed my
police.
kids.
F the police.
You know what I mean? So
Mm.
the reason I'm telling that story is because a lot of us were raised very well. Please, thank you. Oh, please, I'm very fine. Do you mind? Oh, no, sorry, ma'am. Please pass. A lot of us were raised prim and proper, and prim and proper, unfortunately, gets you so far, especially when you're dealing with a colonized mind that was colonized aggressively. The minds of natives and the minds of poor people were colonized by force aggressively. They didn't do it nicely. They were beaten and battered and killed. So if I think I'm going to be prim and proper and ask nicely to get people to understand my narrative, it'll take me 2,000 years. So we've tried, Shane. You tried to speak to abantu abadala. I'd like to think the EFF in Parliament is a good example of young people trying to raise their voice and then old people telling them, hey, ningane nazi nina, tulani. So then you start saying, no, actually, fuck you. Actually, we are equal here. We are all voted for. We have a mandate to serve our people. And you're going to come here with ageism while you're not serving the people and while you're stealing money. So I'm sorry, Gogo Mkulu. Go and tell your little children that listen to you to do whatever rubbish that you tell them. But I'm not, because there are people that are dying and struggling out there. There are young kids that are burning to tell their story to elders. They want to tell their story, mom, dad, but they're being shut down. Look at your hair. Why are your pants sagging? Why are you swearing? So the child ends up being oppressed. Tomorrow that child, we find them hanging. And the mother's like, you, mtanami, I don't know what happened. And I'm like, it's because you oppressed your child and you didn't see it. And people like Penuel have to come and say, fuck that shit. So that the mother can be like, hey, Yazu Penuel, I think umfano right. And Yazu, hey, we are tuga like my boy. So maybe there's something there. And that's essentially, for me, the reason why I fight back and why some of us, it may sound condescending, but it genuinely comes from a really good place because I'm willing to educate.
I hear you, but
I'm really willing to educate. I'm willing to lower myself and listen. But when it gets to a point where I feel oppressed, I will do what needs to be done, and you won't like me. And that's why I said, I'm God, I'm a narcissist, I have this mental illness, I'll take it. Give me all those things.
I hear you, but I beg to differ. But I want us to go back to this thing of craziness. I think it's an important thing that we need to state. Perfect Ngidi also touches on that. Uti, you are both making too much sense, but I'm just as crazy as you both. And I want us to do away with labeling abantu abafana nawe as crazy, because we've seen this happen. We've seen this happen with people who challenge the narrative, like Robert Mugabe, like Malema. Either you are labeled as crazy or stupid. As soon as you try to challenge anything that has to do with colonialism, with whiteness, Mati, we are Pambana, he's crazy, he's stupid. And that's not the point, and that's not the case. The issue is you are challenging the current narrative, you are trying to challenge the status quo, you are asking the questions that need to be asked, and you are saying the right things.
Yeah.
And when you do those things, you are not crazy.
So I want to get in there and say, I used to get offended when people labeled me, gave me a lot of labels. I'd get offended, I'd get defensive, I'd try and explain myself. I took time out at some point and I went and I looked up the definitions. Narcissism, delusions of grandeur, split personality disorder, schizophrenia. And when I read those definitions, I realized, geez, these are actually all correct per the definition. So when they say things like you're crazy, they're right. When a black man in America
No, they are
being
not
whipped.
right.
No, listen
But
to
carry
me.
on.
When a
on.
black man in America or even in South Africa went and wanted to be with a white woman back in the day, they were breaking the law. Per the law, on paper, what they were doing was a crime. You know what I mean? So we need to understand that people are correct because that's the software that's been implanted in their brains. So they're correct. Now, if you watch the movie Eight Mile with Eminem, there's a battle that he has where he tells this guy everything bad about himself. He lives with his mother in a caravan. He's white trash. Some guy slept with his girlfriend. He does that so that the other guy has got nothing on him. And I think for me, it's very important for some of us to mastermind the game. On Facebook, we misspell words so that the algorithms don't pick them up and we don't get suspended. In the real world, we need to find a way to create bulletproof vests. Controversial point, but I think Kanye West is hiding behind mental illness and loving Jesus and the church so that he can push his agendas. So we need to mastermind the game. And if they're going to call me crazy, overall, if that's what it's going to take for me to say the things I need to say and whatever, then, maybe that's what's needed, because that's how a lot of us ended up in hip hop. Hip hop were these crazy black youths who were about guns and what. And then after a while, you start realizing, oh man, there's a lot of consciousness here and there's a lot of education that we're not getting in the schools. I mean, you think of Dead Prez as a group. Dead Prez have very educational albums.
Day schools. I recently found out about that song. Wow. Powerful track.
It's a lot. So I think it's important for me to own the labels because they are correct per definition. And then after taking the labels, I then have to say, yes, you're right, I'm crazy. And then tell my story. But please remember that I'm crazy because number one, it gives me a bulletproof vest. Other people will be like, no, don't worry, that guy said that he's crazy. Like I said, Kanye West hides behind mental illness today, So then it becomes a defense mechanism. But then it allows me to speak. Because if I say that I'm correct, if I say, no, I am God, remember what happened to your boy Jesus Christ? I'm God's son. My mom's a virgin. What the fuck? Are you crazy? He decided to make it real. And that's why they killed him.
I'll break down this temple and build it again in 3 days.
Yeah, you guys like believing in fairy tales, but anyway, before I get cancelled. My point is you need to own some of these labels because I think that's the best way to fight back. Yes, I'm crazy. Yes, I'm a dictator. Yes, I'm not well upstairs. Look at what this crazy person has done for the poor kids of this area. Look at what this crazy person has done to help these people. Crazy. And then after that, start referencing the insanities that they know. I just gave you a reference of your boy, JC, Jesus Christ. Went around telling people I'm God's son. You say that today, I'm God. You're crazy. Per definition, you're crazy. So Jesus ticked boxes of narcissism, illusions of grandeur, probably a split personality disorder. Like we said, he hung out with pimps and prostitutes, which means he was probably a dodgy guy. When you do the research, I don't know how true this is. They say his mom fell pregnant at age 13.
Between
Scandalous.
12 and 14, yeah.
Scandalous. That's scandalous. But now you're referencing.
Now, apparently, it was a normal age back then, hey? Apparently, it
Yeah,
was the normal age back then.
yeah.
But
So now
and especially when you're gonna involve the Holy Spirit, I thought, but
yeah,
this sounds like statutory rape, man. But you
yeah.
can't say that, right?
You can't say
Because
that.
it's God,
You can't
but
say
he
that.
didn't have consent.
Yeah. So I'm crazy, but I'm gonna reference normal, sane people that you know that are doing or saying the same things that I'm doing.
So
Then
Uhai
you
and
start saying,
Mighty,
yo, I don't know.
Uhai and Mighty Queen, Uti, Penuel and Dini, both my influencers. I'm not an influencer. Penuel, I don't think you're an influencer. Are you an
I'm not
influencer?
an influencer. Nah.
I'm enjoying this conversation. Thanks, High and Mighty Queen.
Love it.
Ayanda Kaba. Just a shout out to the people who are engaging here. Ayanda Kaba, Uti,
Yeah.
I've been following Penuel for a while now. I have listened to him speak. She sounds like she's in love, this one. I'm not pasting Josie. My engagement may be limited in terms of participation, hence the request for online sessions.
Sure. No, that's fair.
Ayanda,
That's why we
you
need
sound like
technology.
you're in love. Penuel, is baby number
She's
7 on the way from Ayanda?
she's in love with God. It's very dangerous. Does she know what happened to Mary? She's gonna fall pregnant without me meeting her most.
Okay, High and Mighty also says, I wish I could reach the level of confidence and mental clarity as Penuel. Yeah, I must say, man, you are very well spoken. I listened to this video. Maybe we can touch on that video for a bit because, the video that you released during the week, commentary on what this. For some reason, I can't remember this guy's name. Is it Rob Hersov?
Rob Hersov. But
Yeah,
he's English. He's English now, so it's Hersov. But it's
whatever.
Hersov.
But that
Yeah.
guy, right? So the video
Can
started
I
doing
say
the
something
rounds.
quickly? Can I say something
Yes,
quickly?
yeah.
On this point. So Rob's people reached out to me, and Rob himself reached out to me. And one of the things he did say was, "I speak really well, and I'm so articulate."
Yeah,
Hey,
charm.
I used to hear this thing of if
Hey,
I'm
this
an
shit,
exiled baby.
Otishar. Yeah.
It's nice to be able to speak. By the way, a lot of people struggle, and that's why some of us need to speak on their behalf. Sorry to disturb you. Please carry on with the video.
No. You carry on. How was the engagement? It looks like Rob. Did they reach out to you? It looks like okay. So Rob reached out to you, but Umbalula, who was insulted, reached out to Rob. The irony.
Yeah.
Carry on. His people
I'm
reached
lucky
out
that
to
I
you,
can. I'm lucky that
and
I
he was
can
charmed.
articulate myself. I think it's a blessing. We see it being a reason why relationships end, why parents and kids end up fighting, because someone in the two of them can't articulate, Mom, I'm struggling at school. So you end up getting beaten for failing maths. Your wife leaves you because you can't articulate that I'm scared of telling you how vulnerable I am and how much I love you. So some of us are meant to speak louder than normal because there are so many people that are scared of speaking, whether it's because they can't articulate or because they're captured by their families, by their employers, whatever the case may be. So some of us try to speak for them. I think, again, this is why we ended up loving hip hop. These guys got to say some of the craziest shit we couldn't say. So I'm taking it upon myself to do some of that. Rob, so I made a video that ended up trending last week. Rob Hersov, third generation wealth in South Africa. His grandfather, I forgot his grandfather's name again. There was Slip. I don't know if it's Slip Manel. I forgot his grandfather's surname. But they built Angloval, very big mining company. A piece of it today is owned by Patrice Motsepe under African Rainbow Minerals. The father took over. Rob obviously had a comfortable life. And then from there, he went overseas, worked under a media tycoon, Rupert Murdoch, who owns News Corp, Fox News, and other media stations.
Very
Worked under
powerful
Johan
somebody.
Rupert, helped Johan Rupert set up his media companies, and then he's come back to South Africa and to Africa now to try and fix the country and whatever. So Rob is money, Rob is intelligent, Rob speaks for rich white people, not just
He's
in South Africa,
intelligent.
but
I think he's
across the world.
arrogant more than intelligent, Penuel. But you've probably engaged with him. But now I just saw another Trump. Very arrogant, very self-aware, and very sure of what he's saying. but I don't think he's the smartest person. And
you can
by
be
me
you can
saying
be
he's not the
arrogant.
smartest,
You can be arrogant and intelligent. I think Kanye West is arrogant and intelligent. Rob actually cares about South Africa very deeply. So does Johan Rupert. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people dispute that. And it's mostly because they're wearing emotional glasses. You know, if Rob Hersov was the grandson of Richard Maponya saying exactly what he said, everyone would have stood up and clapped hands. So understand that human beings are different. And like I said, we have different software that we operate on in our brains. Part of what I try to do is I try to figure out what software a person's operating on, how their brains work, who informs their thinking, you know. Rob obviously is a privileged white person. You know, he doesn't know what growing up in a shack means. It's unfair of us to expect him to. He doesn't know what poverty feels like. Unfair of us to expect him to. He understands building wealth, and that building wealth means you can create jobs and pay tax. He doesn't see that for everyone. He sees it for himself and for his people. Understandably so. He has a different way of viewing the world. Normal black people want people like Rob to build big companies so that they can get jobs. Because most black people just want jobs and earn well. Those of us who are a bit woke, who understand history and apartheid and the laws, we obviously catch feelings because we're like, what the hell? This guy's so arrogant and he's almost oblivious to his white privilege. How dare he? How dare he say expropriation without compensation is theft when the apartheid government forcefully removed black people off their land? How dare he? But it's because you're operating from different software, you know, and so is he. But from the software he's operating on, he genuinely loves South Africa and he genuinely wants South Africa to be a strong economy in the world. Unfortunately, and this is not a South African problem, capitalism in the way it's designed requires a few people to be very wealthy and the bulk of the people to be exploited labor. If the exploited labor is not happening in your country, like what's been happening in America, then it gets outsourced to another nation, a Vietnam, a China, a Philippines, where you can exploit the labor so that your country can live well. That's what these guys want because that's what they know. When they remember South Africa being great again, like Donald Trump saying, make America great again. When South Africa was great, it was when black people were exploited as labor. He's not going to say it today, but essentially that's where we need to get to. But to his defense, he's found a lot of good blacks, Herman Mashaba, Musi Maimani, Vusi Tembewayo, and probably others. And he's like, guys, but
has they found
I'm not ready.
Has he found Penuel? Or is he in the quest of finding Penuel?
So I don't think I have anything to offer Rob, which is quite sad because I'd love to work with him.
You speak well. You know? You speak well. You could be his spokesperson. And and he tends to be a bit emotional when he's talking about these things. But when you reason, and sometimes you do not allow emotions to take over your reasoning, because I thought your analysis was quite powerful. By the way, I also got a bit emotional when I started hearing what Rob had to say, but there was a lot of stuff that I took out from what he said. For example, I'm not sure if it's the same talk that you were analyzing, but there was one where he spoke about the independence of the Cape or Cape independence. And he touched on things like NFTs. I don't know how well versed you are on the blockchain technology and those things. NFTs.
Yeah.
There's something else that he spoke about. I can't remember.
The education system.
No. There was something else, man. I can't remember. But now there was something he also spoke of, which you touched upon, the issue of identity and interests and people working towards a certain common good. And there was a term for it towards the end of the thing. I think it's DOA. I can't remember what it means. Do you remember that talk?
Yeah.
I think there were two talks.
Sure.
Yeah. So he talks about NFTs, which is the new fad in blockchain technologies, what people call cryptocurrencies, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of good that I took out from Rob, right? There's
Yeah.
stuff that I didn't like, but I thought, let me take my emotions, take them out. There's something to learn from this guy. Obviously, he comes from a rich family. He's worked
Yeah.
with powerful people. So he knows about this God that I've recently discovered. And he's about that gospel, right? So let me
Sure.
pay attention, put my emotions to the side, and take out the gems in what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so they reached out to you. But Penuel, are you
He spoke
comfortable
about he
in telling
spoke
us what he said? Mhm.
he spoke about the education system as well, which is something we speak about every day. You know, he says our education system is badly run. He said a lot of the subjects that are being taught at tertiary level are useless. And he's right. That's why we
Yes,
have
yes, yeah.
40% unemployment, because they are useless. He's right. You know, you need to have the ability to take good counsel and good advice, regardless of who it's coming from. I think that's the sign of intelligence and maturity. You know, so more than anything, he reached. So two of his people reached out to me saying, "Look, we watched your video on Rob. We've sent it to Rob. Um, great talk that you gave, etc., etc." And then he managed to reach out to me himself, and he said, "Look, very articulate. You spoke well. I got this video from a friend of mine in New Zealand, and he was like, it would be nice to meet up with you at some point and speak about how we can make South Africa a better country." And I fully agree with him. So that's as far as that conversation went. When I'll ever meet him, I'm not sure. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't think I have much to offer him. Uvusi Tembewayo has a great profile. He's done great work with My Growth Fund. Musi Maimane has done great work with the Democratic Alliance. So has Herman Mashaba with the DA and with Black Like Me, his company. So outside of my brain, outside of my thoughts, and maybe being a speaker, if I do meet him, it would be nice to chat. If ever I can be plugged in somewhere, it would be nice. Unfortunately, I'm very difficult to capture. A lot of black politicians and businessmen have tried to capture me for their own agendas. I'm
Difficult,
very
but not
difficult to capture.
impossible, ne? Difficult, but not impossible, ne?
Very possible to capture me if our interests are aligned. The problem is the alignment, and the problem is the honesty. I'm very honest. So I'm the kind of person that if I was captured, I'd want to tell everyone, guys, I've been fucking captured. But in that same speech, I want to be like, now that I'm captured, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to open some doors for you guys so we can all eat. I'm that type of guy.
Is
So
that how
if you have
capital
an
works,
issue,
though? Would capital
that's
allow you to do
exactly.
that?
I think capital can allow you to do that because we've got great examples in guys like Kanye West, in guys like Jay-Z. If you look at the song The Story of OJ by Jay-Z, he speaks about how the Jews built America using credit, So those guys have been captured by the Warren Buffetts of this world, etc. But he's still happy to share some knowledge. He's still happy to put some black people on, give them opportunities, and through all the work they do, it trickles down and creates jobs for black people. And then it empowers psychologically some of us across the world to try and think of how we can mastermind these things. So I'm really hoping it can work. One of the problems that I have is that I do think I'm intelligent. And for a lot of powerful people, it's very unsettling. They like people that are a bit dumb, that are influential, but a bit dumb. Manje, I mean, I'm smart and I'm a minimalist. So you can't promise me a Ferrari or a big house because I don't give a fuck about that. I'd rather you promise me a big piece of land where I can go and build a farm that feeds children. If you capture me in that way, fuck,
Let's talk
we're in
on
the money.
land.
We're in the
Let's talk
business,
about land. Let's talk about land because I think it's very important. And Rob seems to think expropriation without compensation is theft, but I won't
He's
even
right.
entertain that. No,
He's
man.
right.
But look,
You remember what I said? You remember what I said about the definition of crazy? Per definition, he is absolutely correct.
okay,
So we
that's
have
fine.
to agree with him and
Yes,
say, you know what, Rob, you're very right. Expropriation without compensation, according to the law, is a
yeah,
crime.
it's theft.
You're very right. But let's look at that crime. The Constitution of South Africa speaks about fixing the imbalances of the past. And our government, with their white handlers and at CODESA, they agreed on willing buyer, willing seller. And South Africa to date, or the ANC government, has taken back about 8 million hectares of land. That's where we are. We're nowhere close to the targets that we set. So, Rob, a lot of people are frustrated. There are grandmothers that are, because like I said, he's not working on the same software. There are people that are struggling, that are poor. And because they've become desperate and because there are no jobs, they are thinking, fuck it, let's go grab some land. Which, Rob, you know, I know, you give black people land, they won't know what to do with it. They don't have the skills, they don't have the equipment, they don't have the capital. It's going to be a fuck up. But that's
what you
what they
think.
think.
That's what you are
That's what,
saying, right? Where now
no,
that's
no,
how
no,
you
no.
see it.
No, I'm explaining a narrative. I'm explaining a conversation that you have with someone like that.
Okay.
You know, because ultimately you want you and him to agree. Expropriation without compensation is theft. Let's agree per the law. However, we need a solution. And part of that solution has to include how can we get land to black people that are productive without making them pay for it? How can we solve that conundrum? Because willing buyer, willing seller didn't work. Black people don't have money. And get him to be like, oh, okay, I understand. Let's try and find a solution. In that way, it becomes a win-win for everyone. But focusing on what he said, now we get emotional and we get nowhere. You know what I mean? So I'm very big on solutions instead of getting caught up. Because the way Rob speaks, one of the things I appreciate about him, Steve Hofmeyer, a guy like Eugene Terblanche, these guys were honest. Honest. And it's very rare for white people to be honest. And when they're honest, those of us who are not as emotional get to actually hear their cries and think about them from their perspective. They are countering the honesty of a Julius Malema. Because Julius gets to say what he wants, and the white people are like, nah, fuck this guy, man. This guy can't keep saying the rubbish he's saying. Yo, you know what? Give them back the country. Let's see what will happen. They'll be Zimbabwe and they'll beg us again. You know what I mean? Because that's what they're thinking. And like I said, you don't have to go far. Go to Eslalini, go to certain townships. You'll see black people begging whites for jobs, which means if South Africa becomes a big lali or a township, South Africans will beg America for aid. They will beg China for aid. So the whites are saying, let us build businesses and create jobs for you.
Are you still
But
going with the
unfortunately, they are
narrative,
not
or is
thinking.
this now your sentiments? Are you still going with the narrative, or are these your sentiments now?
What narrative?
No, you're saying you're giving an example of how you'd engage someone like Rob, but now you're talking about black people who, if they would get the land, they wouldn't know what to do with it. Are you still continuing with that narrative or that engagement you'd have with someone like Rob, or are you now sharing your sentiments on how you feel black people would fail to upkeep this land?
So I was saying I appreciate Rob's honesty because very few white people are that honest, and especially at that level of influence. So I appreciate it. And it's a counter to influential, powerful black people that speak unrestricted. My point on the expropriation without land was me saying, when I engage an emotional person, even a black person, I need to take a step back and understand where they're coming from. So Rob will say it's a crime, and I will say to him, I agree, and then start the
I hear
conversation.
you. Okay,
A black
cool. I
person
hear
will
you.
say expropriation without compensation is actually what needs to happen because of what happened in apartheid. And I'll
Yeah.
say to them, I fully agree with you, and then start the conversation.
Okay, cool.
That's what I meant.
So let's talk about land, man. I think land is the answer to many of our problems, right? I've started planting stuff right now. I don't have land here. I'm renting, but I bought wood pellet containers. Started putting in some strawberries today and a bit of mint, blueberries. I'm preparing for leaving this place. I said to you earlier on.
Solid.
5
That's
years.
solid.
5 years, I'm leaving this place. Fortunately enough for me, I've got a piece of land back at home, right?
Sure.
Planning to build there very soon. So now the issue of land is very important. And I've realized that when we talk about this thing, white people have a tendency of saying, what are you going to do with land? There's no value in land. But you find out that in America, guys like Bill Gates are acquiring land like it was the end of the world. So there's
Yes.
something there. I always say, observe what the rich are doing and try to find out why they are doing it,
Yes.
right? But it is important for us to take note of these guys and what they are doing. They are acquiring land, whilst Tina here we're being told that it's futile. You can't even work the land.
Yeah.
I was in primary school in 1990 doing standard 3 at Bishop Primary. We had gardens, we had plots of vegetables. I was a 9-year-old. I was planting spinach, carrots, didn't have any skills, but to
Yeah.
put this thing in the ground and it grew. Anyone can do it. There are women, komlazi, who are planting vegetables, bathtubs. It's possible. Let's start with what we have. And we
Yeah.
need to get away from dependency of these supermarkets. We need to plant food in our own gardens, sustain ourselves. What will they call it? Sustenance farming. We need to start
Yeah.
there because your Monsantos are taking over and they are
Yeah.
giving us seeds that cannot regenerate
Yeah.
and that kill your land.
Yeah.
But luckily, there are farm markets out there that are selling organic stuff, and people are sharing seeds that are organic that can help us move forward in this food crisis that we're about to face.
Yeah.
Let's talk about solutions for Africa, man.
You don't want to speak about land?
Talk about land, but I think land is a beginning to the solutions, unless you tend to differ with what I'm saying. What's your take on land?
So a general economy is built on three major aspects. Land is one, capital is another one, and then labor is the third one. Capital today, we call that money, but capital actually includes equipment, tractors, gardening equipment, etc., etc. So when capitalists, ruthless capitalists, including colonizers and those people come in, they tend to take the land. And if you guys have any capital, they take your capital. And then you guys are left with the labor. And that's when our fathers end up going to the mines and to the farms to go and bring their labor to go and work the land and. So in the past, obviously, every man had his own land, he had his own labor, and then he used his own capital or equipment to work the land for himself. We're no longer in that space today. We're in a capitalistic world which operates differently. Second thing I want to say is we need to segment people. Not everyone wants to farm. Even if you teach everyone farming, not everyone wants to farm. Some people want to go and act and make movies. Some people want to manufacture cars. Some people want to become musicians. Some people want to play soccer for a living. Some people want to manufacture clothing. Not
True.
everyone wants to farm. So we need to segment human beings. In the segmentation of human beings, this is the third part. I think 29% of the world is habitable, means it's land. The other 71% is water.
Water, yeah.
Of that 29% of that habitable land, about 50% of it is for agriculture. And the bulk of it is for livestock farming. Human beings live on about 1% of that land. To be a farmer with land, you can feed 100 families, 1,000 families, maybe even 1,000,000 families as one farmer. As soon as everyone is growing their own food, that means you and your 10 cows, your 10 cows become worthless because no one wants them. Everyone has their own cows. So whatever value that you thought you'd have disintegrates into nothingness. Try to sell tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage. No one's going to buy them because everyone buys it themselves. That's on a more practical level. On a more modern level, every
Hold on.
time
Let
we
me engage
grow,
you on that practical level. Have you got your next point down? Because I want to
yeah,
engage you on this practical level you're talking about. How were we living before colonization? Didn't we have subsistence farming? Didn't our cows have value? Because a lot of people had cattle. The Maasai still live like that. Don't they have value on those things?
I was going to end off with that point of
Okay,
if
carry
you look
on then.
at if you look at how much land is needed to feed people, it's very little. That was going to be my last point. Our ancestors, our forefathers that you're speaking about, lived on very little land. Big chunk of South Africa was unused. To this day, if you travel this country properly, a lot of land is just sitting and it's not
Yeah.
necessary to be used. So a lot of the land that black people want, they don't need. 15%, of the land we have in this country is under tribal rule. And of that 15% of tribal land, black people are not working that land, whether it's to farm food, farm cotton, whether it's to farm herbs and medication, whether it's to develop property, to set up game reserves, to set up casinos. Black people have not maximized tribal land. Before we give you the rest of the white people's land, you haven't maximized. Black people that have a yard anywhere in this country, if you have a yard and you ask those black people, how big is your garden? What garden? But you have a yard, Moss. You haven't maximized your yard, but you're out shouting for more land. You don't need it because on your little yard, you can grow enough food to probably feed the whole street outside of livestock. But we're not having that conversation because these are now the sensitive conversations, because I wanted to answer your land thing starting from where I started from in terms of how the economy works. I was even going to go into some of our history.
Okay.
I'm going to carry on where I left off. So you came in where I was speaking about practically growing food and how once everyone grows their own food, essentially an economy kind of collapses from there if we all now start growing our own food, practically. In a more modern sense, where we are in 2021, not just in South Africa, but in the whole world, if everyone grows their own food, Pick n Pay, ShopRite, Woolworths, Cambridge, Boxer, Food Lovers Market, all of them collapse. When they collapse, that means all the employees lose their jobs. The ones that didn't want to farm. I don't want to farm. I'm happy being a cashier. I don't want to farm. I want to drive trucks and work in logistics. They're all going to lose their jobs. The guys that are in refrigeration, the security guards at some of these stores, the cleaners, the guys who supply the cleaners with cleaning materials, the guys who supply the security guards with uniform, etc., etc. Those companies can no longer pay tax, which means there's no money now for schools. There's no money for feeding schemes at schools. The feeding schemes at schools empower some of the farmers who supply some of that produce. There's no money for them now. There's no more clinics. There's no clinics. That means the nurses are now being fired. It means the people that were supplying the medication lose their businesses and their jobs. And the ripple effect is major and the economy collapses. We now live in the Garden of Eden. Everyone is supposed to farm. We're all eating and growing and it's nice and it's airy-fairy and it's yummy, but we don't have an economy. We don't have money to fund technology. We don't have money for our own weapons and the people outside of our country, which is what happened, before. We were living in that utopia. The guys who don't buy into that bullshit, the guys who believe in money and capitalism and technology will come with their nuclear weapons, would come with their sophisticated guns, and they will gun and kill you guys down and once again recolonize this country and then come back and re-implement the exact same systems that you supposedly hate. My whole argument is segment people. That's why I said take the poorest, leave the capitalists alone, leave those guys to do what they do, leave the guys that are working. I'm talking about the guys who, when the middle class and the rich complain about tax, when they complain about crime, I'm saying to Rob and Rob's friends and Johan Rupert, I can get rid of the poor black issue for you so that you guys don't have to pay more tax and you don't have to worry about crime. Allow me, either it's tribal land or give me some of your fancy white farms. Allow me to send some of those black people there so they can take care of themselves. Let's not give them technology so that they don't come up with fancy weapons and funny things, so that they're not a threat, like people in the Amazon and everywhere else. But at least they can feed themselves and you guys can become as rich and wealthy as you can without worrying about them. And every time you guys have to retrench because you've now hired robots, every time you retrench, I'll take those guys you retrenched and I'll go chuck them in that reservation for humans where they can live little merry lives. At any time when you guys need them, we can go round them up, bring them back, put them through some schooling system, upskill them, and then let them work again. Because that's what you guys essentially want. We won't disturb you. Don't disturb them and let them be fine. Again, for that land, you don't need much land for it. A bulk of the land is for livestock. We don't need to be eating so much meat. If anything, the bulk of our diets are actually non-meat. In the morning, black people eat porridge. They eat bread. Midday, they might eat pap and mas. They might eat a sandwich. At night, if you have money, you might have 3 pieces of chicken. You might have a steak. The next black person has just got a bit of minced meat and gravy, or one and a piece of chicken. So the bulk of our diet is actually non-meat. So the poor don't need to be eating meat. It's not necessary. Conscientize them to live off the land, to plant fruit trees and eat fruit and plant vegetables. Have some chickens for eggs and stuff, but they don't need pigs. They don't need cows. A cow is such a huge investment and it needs so much land to graze. Why? Why do you need cows? You don't. You're fine with the chickens and the eggs. Leave the cows to the other guys who, whatever. So for me, it's very much about segmenting human beings, figure out where they should be. About 25 million South Africans, we've got 58 to 60 million South Africans. About 25 million South Africans live on this 15% tribal land. And a big chunk of this land has been given to white capitalists to mine, has been given to white capitalists to build industry and factories, and even to farm. You've got the Zulu kingdom, which has Ngonyama Trust, which makes 118 million rand a year, renting out to big white businesses. Money that doesn't trickle back to the people. I can only imagine. I know in places like in Limpopo, some of the tribal land the chiefs have given to white people to run game farms and resorts. I think stuff like that happens in Mpumalanga. I'm not sure about the Eastern Cape. So there's a lot of land. We don't really need it. I want black people to maximize tribal land because it's there. It's yours. You can go to a chief today. You're saying you have access to land. I can promise you every other black person we know, if it's not them, someone in their family either has land as Lalin in the villages, Emakaya, or can point you to a chief somewhere. Yeah, but there's no electricity here. No, then you're actually not serious about land. You're actually not serious about land. If you're not willing to go there, because when white people came here, there was no electricity and water. They came and they built the dams and they set up those things. Go to that rubbish place and build Sun City like Saul Kersner did in the middle of nowhere. Go build it. And then be like, look at what I did with my land. And I think Sun City built on tribal land.
Where's the capital?
No, the capital you can always get if you have a good idea. There's a lot of black people that I know that have built great things. So if you're a mover and shaker, you can do it. But if we're speaking about the poor, there's galore land, but they don't want it. They leave villages to come and live in squatter camps to be security guards.
I think I get what you're saying, and I want to agree with you. But I think there's where I come from, Ekonce, in the Eastern Cape, there seems to be a move from middle class people. Middle class people, there are people who mainly work for government, right? And now those people seem to be moving away, particularly Episho, Nasekonce, those areas. Those people are seemingly moving away from town because I'm thinking maybe the rates are too high and they are building houses, nice houses, which we usually saw at Transkei on the N2 and some places, KwaZulu. A lot of people are moving away. So people are realizing that maybe the cost of living, right, in these urban areas is too much. But they are not doing anything on those plots. Look, it's not big plots, but it's sizable pieces of land where you can do subsistence farming, if you'd call it that. You can have a istia, say vegetables, a garden, and you'd have a couple of fruit trees and maybe grow a few chickens here and there. But yeah, you can't really have a big crop. Maybe five cows would be enough. You're talking to someone, yes. But now the poorest of the poor, who we'd label as the uneducated people who come from Ezilalini, who are not employed, they don't see the value, Bona, in remaining there. They want to come, they'd rather come here and stay at Kaya Sands in a shack there, which doesn't make sense to me. But you were saying you were talking to someone?
The value that the poor are not seeing is probably the value that some of our ancestors didn't see. The reason we see value in land today is because we've been westernized and we know the financial value of land, so to speak. I spoke to a friend for about 2 hours, I think, on Friday, and he earns well. He lives in Joburg. He's building a mansion back in Venda. I think we've seen some of these mentions on
Yeah, yeah.
social media.
Mm.
A lot of his people are doing the same. So listening to you, I guess similar things happen in the Eastern Cape. I know they're happening in KZN. I told him that I've got some bad news for him. Um,
Don't be a party pooper.
Jeez, and I'm the biggest party pooper. So
Man.
it's a very nice story. You get tribal land, maybe you get something like 1 hectare. It's quite big for 5,000 rand. Insane.
Mm, mm.
They go and they dig up a borehole so they have water. If they can afford it, they get solar in there, or they get a generator, or whatever the case may be. What I told him is, you guys are going to develop towns and cities. That's what's going to happen, which is supposedly a beautiful thing.
It's already
You're
happening
going,
there in the Eastern Cape, just outside
yeah,
King Williamstown. It's already happening. The
yeah,
villages, the logishi that are just
yeah.
outside town. Yeah.
You're running
What's the
away from
problem?
the
What's the
cities.
problem with that, though? Is there a problem in
Yeah,
that?
you're running away from the cities because the cities are over congested and. If you look at how Sandton was built, the history of Sandton, if you look at Midrand, which is probably still a good example because there's still some horse farms there, almost all the cities and towns were built from farms, you know, in the same way of what's happening now.
Always is the same case, right?
Yeah.
A lot of farms there.
So fast forward some years, the places that people are running towards, they're cheap now. Once more and more mansions come in and government comes and paves the roads and electricity and all these nice things come in, you're going to build towns and cities which are essentially going to become what you run away from, because that's essentially what you keep doing. And the reason why Europeans and the West says Africa is the last frontier is because Africa is generally the last undeveloped place where you can build cities from scratch for cheap, very cheap, and they can invest $1 million. And in 5 years, when it becomes sophisticated, that $1 million is worth $1 billion. You can't do that in America. You can't do that in Europe. You can't get those type of returns. You can do that here. You can buy a piece of land, I guess, in the Eastern Cape for 5,000 rand. And 10 years from now, when it's become sophisticated, that 5,000 rand piece of land will be worth 5 million with your mansion on it. But you will have then turned it into a city again. And the same problems will come: overcrowding, prostitution, drugs, no jobs, crime. And then people are going to be looking to escape again, because people are constantly looking to escape, which is why I said I want to create human preservation areas where people are untouched with technology and all these things, because it seems like what we call civilization and progression and technology is actually the beginning of destruction.
Okay.
That's where the problems start.
I'm trying to process what you'd want to start this community, and it sounds to me like something. Have you seen this documentary? I love documentaries, they're cults. This documentary called Wild Wild Country.
Yeah, Osho.
Have you seen that?
Those are my heroes. That's
So
why
that's
I'm
what you
gone.
want to start, right? Because as you're talking about it, I'm thinking of Osho no Sheila. Sheila, I thought
Yeah,
she was brilliant. But
she
do
was.
you have a Sheila? Do you have a Sheila? You need a Sheila for that type of community. But is that what you're thinking about, though? That type of community?
I've got a lot of disciples that are putting their hands up. I just need to solidify my vision. I wanted to build eco villages. I think some exist where something like a Stain City, but that it has cows roaming around, chickens roaming freely, where kids get to play, where it's safe, a few wild animals that are not dangerous, where the houses are built with green materials, where you don't have to work for capitalism, but you can wake up in the morning and work in your garden and share with the community, some kind of paradise is what I initially wanted. I think there's a lot of complexities in doing that. And whether you like it or not, it will be impacted by capitalism externally. That's why I'm thinking now that I think let the capitalists do what they do, and they're really good at it. Even these eco villages are pretty cool for people that want that. I'm kind of living in the city, but there's a taste of, freedom. let people do that. I think it's a beautiful thing. My focus is more the poorest and the most desperate, because I think when you're speaking politicians, when you speak the rich, when you speak anyone that cares, those are the people that are the biggest problem. And constantly exposing them to any type of progress is where the problems begin, because from there they constantly want more. It's not enough to just have a piece of land. They want a car. It's not enough to want a car. They want a fancy car. It's not enough to want a fancy car. Now they want to spin that land they have to get a house in Sandton. So you're constantly chasing instead of just being at peace like a chimpanzee in the wild. So if anything, what would be cool, I think, because again, we need to split people up. I think certain groups of Black people need to visit America on expeditions and study the Amish people, the Amish communities. Visit parts of Asia and see how the people that run small factories live. If we can study sweatshops, I think that's very important. I think it would be very cool for Black people to enslave themselves. Sounds very like a very weird concept, but it's what Pakistanis have done with spaza shops in this country. They've enslaved themselves. They lock themselves inside a jail from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, selling to you through bars, and they've built a culture around that, and they've built some kind of wealth around that. Luckily, because they're minimalists, they don't take their money and buy Mercedes Benzes. They just keep building more and more stores. So
like Corollas and Isuzus.
Yeah, so it would be nice for Black
responsible
people
for
to.
business.
It would be nice for Black people to enslave themselves and become their own. You are your own boss or your own land, and you shout at yourself every morning to go and break your back working for yourself to become productive. But the truth of what I've seen in the world, when you look at the vegan lifestyle, when you look at minimalism, is that human beings actually don't need much. And it's so sad that poor people are chasing money when they don't need it.
But we've
They need a
always
very
known
small
this.
piece of land.
We've
We
always known
know
this
it.
as Africans.
We know it. We know it. We forget it, and we get caught up in adverts. And if you listen to politicians, we've got an unemployment problem. We don't have an unemployment problem. It's better when people are actually unemployed and are working their own pieces of land. And in that small piece of land, you don't need to be working it every day from 9 to 5, because you're not farming for the nation. You're farming for your family of 4 or 5. You guys don't need much. Your chickens are going to lay eggs every day. You've got fruit trees that come in different seasons to give you fruit that don't need much maintenance. And then you're just planting spinach, cabbage, maybe a few other vegetables, either for the chickens or for yourself, or maybe to barter for other things you may need. You don't need
But
electricity,
it sounds like you're speaking against what you just said about 30 minutes ago.
which
Because
is
that's where I am, right? With the future. I feel that's the best future we can have as people.
for some people.
Sustenance, right? Yes,
For
for
some
some
people.
people. But I think
That's what I was saying.
but I think we all grow differently and at different paces, right? And I think once
Sure.
you reach a level of understanding of how humans and how some systems are not developed to work best for us, you realize
Sure.
that, for example, I believe capitalism is not a great system for anyone. Well, only for those that own the resources and the means of production. Great for them, your Robs, your friends, right? Maybe your Vusis and all those people. I think it's great for them. But for the rest of us, this is what has broken down the family structure, which I think is something you don't believe in. I saw a recent post from you questioning marriage and all that. Maybe it's something we can talk about another day. We're almost at 2 hours now.
I believe
now,
in family very much. I believe in family structures very much.
okay, but now the marriage part of it.
I don't believe in marriage. We can discuss that another time.
Okay, cool.
Our ancestors. No. Sorry. Please carry on.
No. So it felt like you're just contradicting yourself, or is it a matter of you saying, "Look, it's the best way to get going in terms of being independent and breaking away from the system." But there are people who are comfortable with the system. For those people, then they must carry on working under the system. Is that what you're saying?
Remember what I said, that not everyone wants to farm. Some people have different dreams. They want to play soccer, they want to be musicians, etc. So we need to leave them alone. And I said we need to split human beings into segments.
Okay.
And on top of that, I also said the black people that claim that they want land and they want to grow their own food, they must go maximize tribal land first before I take them seriously.
No, I get you. I get you. So now
Yeah.
you're talking about your vision, which is fine, right? I don't think we spoke on solutions. We're already at 2 hours. I don't want to drag it further.
Yeah, no,
Maybe we'll
shut it
have
down.
another
Shut it down.
engagement. Yeah, we'll have another
Sure.
engagement some other time. But I'll just throw a
Sure.
word at you. And I want you to give me what comes to mind, right?
Sure.
I probably know what you're gonna say on this one, but I'll ask you anyway. God.
Are you gonna save this thing? Someone asked if you're gonna save this.
It's gonna be saved. It's gonna stay there. Yeah, High and
Solid.
Mighty Queen asked, I hope you all save this live because there is so much. High and Mighty Queen, it will stay on the YouTube channel.
Sure.
God, what comes to mind?
God is a concept that was created by human beings to answer all of the difficult questions that normal humans don't have the answers to, and also define right and wrong, and also to explain where people came from, where the world came from, and where we're going. But it is a concept that was created by human beings, documented in books. They added stories to give it some color and fluff and give it some kind of meaning. And it's been entrenched through music, through movies, through so many other things. Dan Brown, who wrote the Da Vinci Code, said in a speech that human beings had lots of gods when they didn't have a lot of answers. God of thunder being Thor, the god of fertility, I think, being Minerva, etc. As human beings now find different answers for some of these things they couldn't explain, a lot of those gods begin falling away. Yet there are still very, very difficult questions like, why am I here? Where do we come from? Where are we going? And that's the reason why the concept of God still exists. For people that have found a way to live a meaningful life on earth, they don't need that concept of God because they are fulfilled, which is why there are so many churches in the poorest of areas, because the people there need hope. They are lost. And the only answers you can give to them outside of a good, meaningful life is God knows, God has seasons,
You
God
will
will one day.
understand it the by and by.
Yeah, but God is a fictional concept created by human beings, just like Santa, just like the Tooth Fairy, just like Utigolosho, just like the Boogeyman. We create these concepts to get human beings to behave in a certain way.
What you've just given right now, this answer you've given, by the way, I'm glad you're unpredictable because I thought you were going to say Penuel. But, well, Penuel, God, that's his label there. But this, what you've just given now reminds me of something I recently saw. Status Kamaponga. He was saying, he wrote, Jesus is the answer. And he wrote something like, an answer to what question?
Yes.
I thought that was interesting. Money.
I want to add this. If there is a real God or there are real gods, it is the people that came up with those concepts because they have the power to influence and manipulate minds. In the same way, the people that came up with money today decide that you're no longer living in the Eastern Cape and you're going to travel so far from your family and you're going to choose a certain wife and you're going to choose a certain school for your child and you're going to choose to speak English, etc., to chase money. And they decided to use this tool to manipulate and control your mind. So in Penuel being God, it is because I'm challenging those people that wrote the Bible and the Quran and the Torah. And I have written Penuelism principles to challenge those people and to say, I actually have a different way of viewing the world. I can give you different answers of where we came from and where we're going. I can give you a different purpose for your life that will challenge the current concepts that exist today of gods.
Was this state of thinking influenced by the God delusion? Simple yes or no?
No.
Okay. Money, imali, maskhulume imali.
Oh, I thought you were shutting this thing down, Mos.
I am shutting it down. So I'm asking you three things. God,
sure.
but nguwo oyidragayo because you have these long
Hare, hare.
answers. No,
Sure,
no, I'm not saying you shouldn't, right?
sure,
But I'm shutting it down. I'm asking you
sure.
money. What comes to mind? Money.
Yuval Noah Harari wrote a book called Sapiens. He's an Israeli guy.
I know.
Tells a
I've heard
very
of it.
nice, yeah. He's got a very nice TED talk that people can check on YouTube on why humans run the world. And he speaks about the fact that animals live in an objective reality. They see rocks and rivers and food. They live in the real world. Human beings also live in the real world. However, they have created fictional realities, of which religion is one of them. Human beings created religion using our imagination. Human beings created the concept of money, where I can give you 50,000 Rand and you can give me your 5 cows, real cows that exist because I'm giving you money. And you can go to the bank tomorrow and there'll be a glitch at the bank and your money's gone. And I have your 5 cows. Laws and human rights, fictional reality, the concept of companies like Facebook and Google, it's fictional. That's not real. You go to a lion and you're like, hey, lion will just eat you. They don't care. Concepts like heaven and hell, concepts like Santa, these are things that have been created by people and implanted in our brains through years and years of propaganda. Everywhere you look, every R&B song you listen to, concepts like love, you know, these things are primed into your brain until you believe that they are real. And you believe, no, I'm traumatized. I believe black people are damaged because of apartheid, because someone reminds you every single day. But it's not real, because your reality is that you're privileged. You live in a nice house. You probably earn well. The average white person in South Africa earns 11,000 a month. If you're earning over 11,000, that means you're living better than the average white person. Anyone who's earning over 20,000 Rand is very comfortable and should not unplug from the money system, because growing your own food is extremely difficult. Having to fetch water is extremely difficult. Living without electricity is extremely difficult. 20,000 gets you a comfortable life within capitalism, for example. So money has become the more powerful than God. When the people who created the concept of God started seeing that a lot of people are starting to lose faith in this concept, they needed something better. And that better thing became money. And today, I don't need to fasten you in chains. I don't need to human traffic you. I don't need to do anything. I can just promise you money or pay you money, and you will travel from Nigeria barefoot. You will travel overseas. You will sell your kids. You will abort your child. You will learn a new language. You will do whatever it takes to have money. And
You are
you will, after that, say it was by your choice. It
you
was
are
free
hitting
will.
hard. You are hitting
So,
hard. Have mercy on us. You are hitting hard. They dangle it, man, like a carrot in front of a donkey. Powerful
and it
stuff.
worked.
Open
Yeah.
your church. Open your church. The
Jeez.
future. Last thing, the future.
There's a concept called simulation theory. I don't know if you've heard of it. Simulation theory holds that there's a chance that we live in a simulation. Everything we feel, see, experience has happened before.
Is it like the
It's
Matrix?
like the Matrix, it's a program that we're constantly living in.
Okay.
And proof of the simulation theory lies in, if you've ever had deja vu,
Yes, yes.
it's because you've experienced it before. So the program is just reminding you. If
Actually,
you
no, I
ever,
know of the term. Sorry. I know of the term,
yeah,
but I've never experienced such. Yes, this deja vu. I always hear people talking about it. I understand
you've
what
never
it
had
means,
deja vu.
but I've never had that moment
Have you ever had a dream that became true?
all the time. I think I've got a special gift, but I don't think I'm enhancing it. But it happens a
Not,
lot.
it's not a gift. It just means you are aware of the program
That
that
I
is replaying. Have you
okay.
ever listened to music and it sounds
Okay.
familiar, even though
So
you've
so
never
I
heard it before?
so I guess this won't have it won't have a linear timeline, right? This concept you're talking about. So there's no tomorrow, there's no today. That's why I can see tomorrow today, or I can feel like what is happening today has happened in the past. Is that the concept?
No, no, it's just it's like an album. You play it from track 1 to track 25. Track 25 is when you're old and dying, or when you get hit by a car and you die.
but
and
when
then the game starts again.
no, but if I'm feeling deja vu, it means that I'm in the present, but I'm living in the past, or what I'm experiencing in the present, I've almost experienced in the past. And if I'm a dreamer like me, when I dream about something and it happens, it means that I'm now in the present, but what happened in the future, I've already seen in the present.
Do you know why you're
Hence, I'm
dreaming?
saying maybe
It's because
okay.
the dream is just an update of the program. That's all.
Okay, I've never read on the on this concept, so it's a
Yeah.
new concept to me. Maybe I'd have to read about it for me to understand
So
what you're saying.
it's just a theory. The future of the world is unknown. The present of the world is based on what we think is real. You and I looking at each other here on this video, we believe it's real. Um, it's an illusion. Without your eyes, you wouldn't see it. Without your ears, you wouldn't hear it. And someone has explained to you what is beautiful and what is ugly. Someone has explained various concepts to you. So the future is very weird to think about on a very deep level. On a very basic level, robots are going to take over jobs. Technology is going to crush some of the most popular jobs, like being a doctor. I mean, you're going to get scanned by a computer that's more accurate than a doctor. They're going to prescribe meds.
Nanotechnology and all
Surgeries
those
are going
things.
to be, so jobs are going to fall. And people want to introduce a basic minimum wage, which I think is stupid. Humans don't need money. Humans need to go back to living like animals. And I'm hoping to sculpt a future where I get more people to get naked, to drink water, to wake up every day and do nothing, and go to sleep at night and be fulfilled and not feel like, oh, I was unproductive today, I didn't do anything. No, you did exactly what you needed to do. You had a meal,
Needed
you
or
played around with
wanted?
your kids. Sorry?
Needed or wanted? Or is it the same thing to
Whatever
you?
whatever the case may be, whatever the case may be, I think the only things we need is food, maybe a bit of sunlight, some rest. It's arguable that we need companionship because some people are comfortable being on their own for long periods. So it doesn't matter. Um, if people like myself don't rise up and convince more people to unplug from capitalism and this unsustainable system that we have, the people that run the world will have to find a way to kill off the poorest people. They won't have a choice because they'll have nothing left for them. And those people become too destructive and they will end up killing the poor and they will end up killing good people. So the best thing to do will be, one of the ways to not kill the poor is to sterilize poor women through contraceptives. Make sure that you give people unhealthy food so that they die younger. Things like maybe Monsanto seeds, genetically modified foods. Things like all of a sudden we have mental illness and everyone's depressed and committing suicide, whatever the case may be. So you can obviously sterilize people.
COVID vaccines?
You can plant let's not talk about COVID. You can plant ideas in woke people's minds saying the world is overpopulated. I don't think I want to have kids because this world is so bad and so dangerous. You know, now you've been convinced to not breed, which means less human beings to worry about. So something needs to give. Like I said, humans live on 1% of the Earth's surface, which is nothing. We can occupy. I read a stat that said if you were to put all human beings in one space, they would fit in Los Angeles, in America, in that city. We would all fit in Los Angeles. The rest of the world would be empty. This includes 1.3 billion people in China. It includes 1 billion people in India. All of us can fit in LA. To show you just how underutilized the land actually is. I wish we could live like animals, man. I wish more dumb people could die or be killed. They don't add much value. Um, and a lot of really rich, stupid people need to be killed because they're part of the problem.
How
Rich
do you
people are meant to be smart.
let me not ask you this, man, but I want to, because now you talk and you don't stop. And by the way, I enjoy that. High and Mighty Queen is actually enjoying that too. This was amazing. Thank you, guys. Yes, Pen, open that church. How do you determine? Okay, let me not ask it, but this thing of
How do you
saying
determine
abantu
who
are
to kill?
stupid, and it feels like People say people are stupid because they think differently to them, or they don't see things the way that they see them. Is that the
Yeah,
case with you?
it's definitely the case. But in the human world, so in the animal world, it's different. Lions eat buck, and it's fine. In the human world, when you've got a serial killer, serial rapist who's raping and killing, I think that person needs to be put down. I don't think they must be put in jail. May not be worth rehabilitating. So a person like that to me is stupid. A person who is a billionaire, but who is creating an unsustainable world and polluting the water and killing wildlife and stopping other people from living organic lives, to me is a stupid person. They're
I
rich,
got you.
they're
I got you.
successful, but they need to be put down. So
Thank you.
that's how
Thank
I
you.
put it.
Thank you. Diabulela Buti, thank you very much for your
Dude,
time, man.
now I'm
I must
tired.
say it was very difficult to get this thing going. I'm just informing the people that are watching now. This guy is
Yeah,
a hard head. He's so stubborn, and we are coolish. Ajay doesn't answer him. So I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this dude? But I was a bit patient, and you probably thought I ignored you. I didn't ignore you. I had issues with my WhatsApp. I need to change some settings, but it was
sure,
worth it. And I'll keep in touch. I think we have a lot to talk about. I
sure,
want to get involved in some of the things that you are doing.
sure.
We will pray for you as Christians.
Please do. Pray for my salvation. I'm a lost sheep.
Sakuthandazela, usakubeka nezandla. But thank you very much, man. Keep doing
Yeah,
what you're doing. I thought we were going to talk
thank you.
about Buy Black. I think it's a great concept, great idea. Hopefully,
Yeah,
we'll chat again. Probably share the stream on both platforms. I think that is possible. But let's make it
sure.
happen. There's so much to talk about. Solutions, ideas. People want to talk about those things. You remind me a lot of other people that I've spoken to. I think there's a lot
Yeah,
of similarities about the things that you're saying and the way you're thinking between Wayne and Jamie Mighty. Are you
sure.
familiar with him?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ulale kakuhle, uThixo akusikelele. All the best. We'll keep in touch and open that church.
I'll sikelela myself. Thank you.
Sharp, guys. That's the end of the broadcast.
Thank
Subscribe
you
to
very much.
Penuel's YouTube channel. Penuel, what's your YouTube channel? What's
Penwell,
the name? Penuel.
EL. Sure.
Yeah. And then he's also on most social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram,
Instagram.
and
On
Facebook. But
Facebook, I've got
you
a
always ban
page
me.
with
Okay.
43,000 followers, I think, but I get suspended a lot on Facebook, man. Penuel The Black Pen. A couple of my videos are up there as well.
My man, do you know what my handle is on Twitter?
No.
The black ball pen.
Boom.
Yeah, and
Boom.
copper. Yeah, and copper.
I guess they
Anyway,
call it fate, and God knows everything, and when paths intersect and all those good things.
it's the matrix, and there's no present, there's
There
no
we go.
future, there's no yesterday. It's
Boom.
just anyway. Thank you, man. Have a good night. Keep
Thanks,
in
brother.
touch.
Cheers.
Sure. Thanks, everyone.
Sure.